Hello and welcome everyone to Indie Incursion, an indie games podcast, your weekly source for all the indie games news you need to know. This week we've got 4 awesome indie games news stories for you before we hop in to an amazing news Cram segment and talk about some indie games over on Kickstarter. But before we get into that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Vaughn Hyde, and I'm, of course, joined by my illustrious co-host, the biggest of average Josh Boys. How you doing today, Big Josh Boy?
I'm doing good, man. What's up? How you been?
It's pretty good, dude. It's a good week.
Yeah. How'd it go?
Yeah,
What's
just
happened so
enjoying
far?
stuff. I am setting up some stuff for the future. I'm going to try to get some passion projects off the ground. I'm actually kind of excited about it. I've been talking with some friends, getting an editor. I'm excited.
Damn.
There's some cool stuff going on. I don't want to say anything right now, just in case I wimp out and don't actually do it. Or just in case the editor that I have just thinks I'm garbage, but yeah, I mean, he's a great editor, so.
Well,
yeah.
we'll see.
Hopefully
okay.
he doesn't think I'm garbage.
I mean,
He's read my stuff before, so.
He'll turn your
Cross my
garbage
fingers.
into, diamonds. That's how it works.
Hopefully, yeah, that's what I'm hoping will happen. I mean, I don't know if that's an editor's job, but so
His now.
yeah, it's gonna be his job. I've been wanting, on my way home from work, I was listening to the HP podcast, and they were talking about midnight releases. When's the last time you went to a midnight release? Can you remember one?
I don't. I guess the last one was probably Borderlands. Like, I think the original Borderlands.
Oh, holy shit. I thought you meant like Borderlands 3.
No. Fuck no.
The first one. Jeez. Can you remember your favorite moment from a midnight release?
Not really. They were all pretty crap.
Wow. Okay. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this was to share a story that I remembered
Okay.
from the Destiny midnight release. So I went to my local GameStop with my friend Chase, who you and the podcast knows because he writes in weird ass fucking questions like he did today. But I went with him and his brother-in-law, my friend as well, Tim. We all go to the GameStop to pick up Destiny, and we're sitting there waiting. And this was when we didn't get those like cool 9 p.m. releases.
Mm-hmm.
How like they're like, oh, the East Coast has it at midnight, and now it's our 9, so we're just do a simultaneous release. Those are cool, but instead we had to wait till true midnight. So our like local GameStop are one of them because we have like 5, which is just ridiculous. But they were doing a giveaway of some like posters and some other cool merch and like swag, whatever. I don't really know. And there was this poster that I really, really wanted, and I whispered to Chase that I would suck the employee's dick to get that poster.
Sounds.
Because I wanted it so bad.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you gotta suck a dick.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to get down and dirty to get that poster if you really want it. I mean, I'm going to earn that poster is what I'm telling him, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out that I actually won the drawing to get this poster.
He
dude.
probably heard you.
No, well, actually, he did hear me like 5 seconds later because Chase goes, oh, I guess you won't have to suck that guy's dick now. And the guy turns around and gives me the weirdest fucking look ever. He was like, get the fuck away from me.
But then he winked at the
No.
end.
He's like, meet me out back.
Yeah.
You're about to earn that poster, kid. You didn't win this.
Shit's rigged.
Yeah, I had to just bring up that story because I just remembered it. I was like, man, I still have that poster. It's rolled up in my closet.
Wow. All that dick sucking wasn't even worth it.
I mean, dude, it's a cool poster. I'm going to cherish it until eventually it degrades like all other things. But you know what I'll really cherish is the memory of, that phallic object in my mouth. That's what I'm truly going to cherish is the experience.
Wow.
So
this is
speaking of
great.
experiences, what have you been playing this week, Big Josh Boy?
So I have been playing a couple of indie games. This time it's actually going to be indie. Yeah. I got codes for both of these games. The first one is Cat Quest 2, which, if you don't know, this is the sequel to Cat Quest, which is a very interesting game. It's essentially, it has the aesthetic of a very mobile game type. appeal where everything is very cartoony. It's all very colorful, kind of poppy. But the interesting part about it is the main game, you're essentially a cat. And in this one, in the sequel, you get to also play as a dog. And they made it a fully co-op game where you can play with 2 people throughout the entire game, or you just have an AI character who is just awful. Like, awful, awful.
You're like, he attacks me, awful.
No, luckily they cannot attack you can't attack your counterpart.
There's no friendly fire.
But no friendly fire. But they basically just so one of the things that you do in this game is essentially you have basic attacks, which is either you're swinging like a sword or an axe, or you're shooting magic from a wand. And then you also have spells. And so when you give your counterpart, the character, basically whatever weapon they have, they'll play in a way where they'll like hit things once and then kind of roll away and just like run away a little bit and then come back. And it's like, it makes no sense. It's like the slowest way to defeat an enemy ever. They're like playing really on the defensive, which I guess is good because they don't die as often as most AI would, but they are just like constantly running away. But regardless, the game is basically you as a cat and a dog, and you're essentially these kings of 2 different lands that are basically a land of all cats, a land of all dogs, and these 2 evil beings have taken your throne, and they're making these 2 lands basically, they're starting a war between them, and you have to come through and try to basically take them down and reclaim your kingdom. And there's a bit more to the story, but I won't go into it because there is kind of a twist in that, which is the same as the first one. And essentially the way the game works is you go from area to area. There's these little quest markers. There's side quests that you can run to and help out people. And generally you're just running through, killing monsters, going through dungeons. It's very similar to a lot of light RPG games. And the cool thing about this one is it's got a very unique poise on how they do the overworld. So in most RPGs, like you think of a classic RPG, like a Chrono Trigger or the earlier Final Fantasies, where they had an overworld where you would have an area you would walk through, you would get to the point where the town would end and you're leaving the town, and then you would have this big kind of like a picture of a map, and your little character would then walk across the map. So this game is like that, except you're always on the overworld. So everything has that strange like map looking aesthetic to it, but you're on top of that area, and so are the enemies. So it has this very different, it's obviously not heavily utilized. It's the only game I can really think of where they do this in the full entirety of the game, other than going into dungeons and then having like another area. But traversal through the towns, there's enemies, there's people to talk to, they're all on top of the overworld, and that's essentially where you're running through. So it's a very unique perspective on how the game is set up, and there's a lot of cool parts to it, from improvement wise, adding the extra, bonus character of now making this game co-op. They've added new spells, a ton of new armor and weapons that you can get and upgrade. So there's a lot to it. It is a very casual game. I'll put that as like a caveat to it, is that this isn't going to be like a hardcore RPG that you play, or, a hardcore adventure game. This is more of, it's just very quirky, cute, funny. It is fun, but a lot of it is stemmed down to do a quest where you go to one area, you fight a couple enemies, you come back and talk to the person. But there's a lot of the story elements to it that kind of bring it along, just because this game is full of puns. Like, every other word in this game is a pun, and it's always based on dogs or cats, which if you don't like that, you'll probably get super annoyed with this. I thought it was pretty funny, but even like going through, there were some times where I was like, man, that one was really a stretch. Like, they get pretty ridiculous with it. But I thought it was fun. I definitely enjoyed my time with it. I think if you've tried the original Cat Quest, it's going to be just more of what you love and added bonuses to it. And then if you've never tried a Cat Quest game, I think this is the one to pick up just because it's good for a co-op game, and especially for someone who has like a significant other or another friend who maybe isn't as into games. This is a pretty easy one to pick up because there's not as much from a reliability standpoint on that extra character. Like the extra character can be total dead weight, just like the AI was, but you'll still be fine and you'll still have a fun time just killing a bunch of random baddies that are on the screen. But yeah, that was Cat Quest. It was pretty good.
Yeah, you've been waiting for Cat Quest 2 for quite a while.
Yeah, I have. I was pretty excited. And I was actually pretty excited because I reached out to the team because I had originally done an interview on the site that I write for, Parallax Media. And I had done an interview with them and I was like, hey, I don't know if you guys remember me, but I'm really excited about your game. Can I try it? And they were like, oh, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, cool, which was very exciting. And obviously, shout out and super thankful for the team providing the code for me. So just keep that in mind. This was, a free copy for myself, but I still enjoyed it and I still would have gotten it if they didn't, just because I am a fan of what is now a series. And I believe, and this is kind of spoilers, but it seems like they're poised to also create a Cat Quest 3 after this. So pretty cool. Looking forward to that. But if you're a fan of this, you should pick up Cat Quest 2.
Yeah, something I find super depressing about the lack of coverage on indie games is actually how easy it is to get codes for indie games.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the cool things about being in this position from like our point of view is they obviously want as much publicity as they can get. But I think they deserve it because they're constantly shadowed, especially with the fact that it's easy to overlook a lot of games, and even I'm doing it where there's games where I know I want to try, like Disco Elysium is a game that I know I really, really want to get to. There's other indie games that are out there, but there's so much happening right now. Like the game Legend of Bumbo, the one that was created by the Binding of Isaac developer, that came out yesterday, and I still haven't had a chance to pick it up. I even bought it. I still haven't had a chance to pick it up.
Josh has cards in it.
I mean,
you've been passing over it?
It's not really cards, actually, looking into it, and I'll talk more about it as we, get into that when I actually play the game, but it's more of like a weird mix of Candy Crush and like turn-based battle. I don't know, it's really weird. I'll have to play more of it, but I watched someone stream it, and I was like, this is a little odd. I don't know how I'm going to feel about the game, but we'll get to that more when I actually get my hands on it. But going back to my point is there's so much out there that it's really easy to overlook that. Like, especially with Nintendo blowing up right now for all the games that are coming out, Luigi's Mansion, Pokemon, like there's so much happening. Death Stranding is obviously out and people are going nuts about it. There's a lot because it's that season. It's the time where video games just become rapidly accessible, which is good. But from an indie developer perspective, they need all the help they can get for anyone talking about their games. So go check out Cat Quest 2.
Yeah, that's why you guys listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
It's because you want to know about indie games. So, before you pick up Jedi Fallen Order, listen to this podcast, pick up Cat Quest 2, pick up The Legend of Bumbo. It's got cards. Josh loves it. Apparently, it's like Candy Crush, which is probably the weirdest mix-up I've ever heard. But
yeah, I'll talk more to that when I actually have some time in it, but it's going to be a weird one. And then I have another game I want to talk about before I shut up. So I also got from, I believe the developer is Pillow Castle Games. They came out with a game called Superliminal, which is super trippy. This is a game that when I believe it was in the Kind of Funny showcase a while back or another showcase of indie games, and I saw it and I was instantly like, oh my God, I need to play this. It's going to be amazing. And the reason why is because I love games that are puzzle based, but in a weird, mind boggling, trippy kind of way. It has a lot of tones that are very similar to the Stanley Parable, which is that, walking kind of like weird simulation game. It has a little bit of mix of Portal, just because of the announcer that's constantly talking to you. And I also think if anyone's played it, which I think this is a stretch, Anti-Chamber, which is even like a crazier, trippier game that is amazing and everyone should check out. It has elements of that where the game is all about perspectives and changing your perspective to solve a puzzle that's in front of you. So the background of the game is essentially you're a participant in this lab where they're trying to use sleep therapy to solve an individual's problem with basically like depression or feeling overwhelmed and being defeated and not, having any initiative to do anything. And so you're in this sleep therapy session and you wake up, or it seems like you wake up because this alarm clock keeps ringing and you keep hitting the alarm clock, you keep walking out. And as you're doing it, you're noticing you're in these trials, these weird sleep trials where they make you do things where you have to play with perception. Basically, you'll get an item, like they'll give you a chess piece and they'll be like, hey, if you use perception to your advantage, you'll be able to change this. And you can go from having the chess piece on one side, if you look at it, walk up close to it, angle it in a certain way, and then push it off to the other side of the room. You'll essentially expand it in size, or you'll shrink it down depending on which way you're doing it. And that can go into your advantage to solve different puzzles. So it's all about changing the elements in the room based on just perceiving things in a different way, which is super cool. It can be a little frustrating at times, just because sometimes you really don't know what it's trying to actually have you do, which I've seen some reviews that they got really upset about it, but honestly, I think it was amazing. I think there are some times where I was like, oh, I'm not really too sure what to do here, but it's a puzzle game. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to push you to think of things in a different way. So I loved it, and it's you doing those trials, and then eventually you go outside of the trial and you escape into this one subsector of it, and then you essentially get lost. And so this guy, the doctor, is talking to you over a stereo every so often. You find stereos placed, and he'll basically say oh, don't worry, you're lost. We've never seen this happen before, but we're still trying to find you. Just keep going forward through the trials, blah, blah, blah. And so it's you basically being oh, I don't know how to get out of here. I'm just going to keep going through, and you go through all these weird areas and strange illusions from your brain. And as you go deeper and deeper into the game, it just keeps getting trippier and trippier. And I just really loved it. It was such an interesting experience. I think that the story of it was pretty good too, and it has a really great message at the end overall. And it's only about a 3-hour-ish experience, which honestly, some people are always oh, I want the best bang for my buck, but in my time, just because I'm, kind of growing older, I value my time I don't want always a 40-hour game. And I think this was a perfect chunk of really cool puzzles, interesting ideas, a good story to go along with it, and, wrapped up into that nice 1 3-hour sitting that I was by the end of it, yeah, I had my fill. I think this game was great. It was definitely worth the time that I played it.
Yeah, and even if you have the complaint that you want bigger bang for your buck, Superliminal is only $16.99, I guess, on the Epic Game Store.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. But
so I would say even a 3-hour experience, I mean, depending on the quality of the experience, might be worth $16.99, depending on what kind of games you like. It sounds like this one's pretty interesting. I've always wanted to get into games like the Witness, Stanley Parable. Mm-hmm. I have Indigo Prophecy in my head, but that's not it at all. There's another one that's really weird. I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. But I've always wanted to. Yeah, I've always wanted to get into these super weird puzzle games.
They're so cool. And
just never had the chance to. And I've always thought perspective puzzles were really, really cool.
Yeah.
When you'd see. Go ahead.
Man, it's really interesting because there's a lot of things where you'll walk into a room and you'll see things that are painted just in a weird way, and you'll have to go to the room at a certain angle, look at that weird painting, and you'll notice like, oh, this is actually like a giant Rubik's Cube looking piece. And as you're looking at it, when you align it perfectly, it'll just click and you'll be able to then grab it out of the air. And you're like, oh, now I can use this and like use it as a way to get out of a room or something like that. So there's a lot of those little types of puzzles that are very interesting.
That sounds really, really cool. And I think I haven't played the game. I should tell everybody that. But the way it sounds like it's like ambiguous nature might be really, really cool and lend to the difficulty of the puzzles. Like not knowing what you're supposed to do, like you said, is kind of the point of a puzzle.
Yeah, there's some things in there where like I would do it and I would like some pieces you're like it kind of clicks and you're like, oh yeah, I obviously need to make this bigger. I turn it into a ramp. I can get out of here. Like whatever it is. Like those are usually the more obvious puzzles that come up from it. But then there were ones where I would look at it and I would be like, there's no way the game wants me to do this. And I would basically go about it and I'd be like, I guess that is what they wanted me to do it. And like, so some of the things, and I don't even know, maybe that wasn't the right way to do it and I just figured it out. But like still, there were a lot of those moments in me just being like, I don't really know what to do, but I'm just going to keep trying this in different like angles, different perspectives, and see if I can figure it out.
Oh, nice. The game I was also thinking of is called the Talos Principle, by the way. I just could not remember what it was called.
Never played it.
That's what I was thinking about. Speaking of playing games, I've just been playing freaking Fallout 4, dude. And I've technically been also playing another game, but I can't talk about it because this podcast will go up before the embargo is done, which is annoying. But yeah, playing a bunch of Fallout 4, enjoying it. I'm excited to get into some cool indie games that are coming up. Astroneer is finally coming to PS4, I believe, on the 15th. So I'm definitely going to be picking that one up. It's been on Xbox One and PC for a long time, and I've always thought its art style was really, really cool. But I'm just a PC shill, dude. Not PC, freaking PS4 shill.
Are you sure? You want to come to my side of things?
I can
come
convert
to the PC,
now,
baby. It's time. It's never a better time to convert.
I'm gonna be honest. Those Steam cards are really getting me there. I might have to do that. I've been thinking about, and this is gonna annoy you. I've been thinking about buying Hyper Light Drifter on PC on Steam just to get the Steam cards.
You are so ridiculous.
They're so cool.
No.
I just think they're so awesome, and the fact that you could sell them is so weird and interesting.
The Steam client of having those different valuables of cards and little like collectibles and in-game items that you can sell on the Steam store is actually pretty cool. They changed, and I know I'm kind of going on a weird tangent, but they recently, a couple years back, changed it where you have to like log in through the authenticator and like wait a certain time period for things to sell, which is kind of annoying. But originally, you could just sell whatever you want, and I used to do that all the time and just basically sell all the cards. So I would get, a couple bucks, and I'd be like, oh, next time something goes on sale, I just buy a game with it from all these cards that I don't want because suckers like you keep buying them.
I would never buy a card. That is just dumb. I don't know why you'd buy one. I like to earn them.
Because the game does not give you all the cards. That
is a good point. Yeah, they're randomized.
Yeah, you get a randomized number of drops for how many cards the game comes with. So if the game comes with 9 different cards, it'll probably drop only 4 of them. If it comes with 6 cards, it will probably drop 3 of them. And the shitty part about it is sometimes you'll get the same card 2 times or 3 times, and you're like, well, great, I don't need this card, I want the other ones. So I understand why people buy them, because when you have all the cards, you can essentially trade them in and you get levels for those games, and then it gives you little collectible items. It'll give you a emoji that you can now use in all the Steam discussion boards, or it'll give you a wallpaper that you can put on your PC, like a wallpaper.
Dude, you are really fucking selling me on this shit.
That's not what I'm trying to
awesome.
do, but yeah, that's what you can do.
Yeah, I love how you try to dissuade me from popping over to PC on Steam and just getting all these freaking cards, and I'm like, man, this sounds like a dream. Trophies be damned, fucking Steam cards all the way. This is awesome.
I mean, I mean, there's also achievements there too, so it's not like
Nah, fuck that. Okay, so I do actually have a question. When do you get these cards? I've gotten them just like randomly.
It is
You said
random.
that there might be like 9 times. Can you just keep playing the game and
No.
hopefully get more cards?
No, so what happens? Well, kind of. So what happens is essentially each game has a limited number of drops that you'll always get. So you'll always get, like I said, if it's 6 cards in total, it'll be usually like 3 drops. If you have more cards, there'll be more additional drops. But it's never going to be the amount of cards that it totals, and it's always going to be just randomly as you play, and it usually is within the first hour or so of playing the game. It'll trickle a couple of cards out at you, however many drops you have.
What it does is like eventually cap.
Yeah, so it'll be just like the 3 is the cap, essentially.
That's bullshit.
So what
That's
happens?
dumb.
What happens is every so often, and it's super rare. Every so often, it'll be like, "Hey, a random card pack," and it'll just give you a random card pack for a random game. And it doesn't always have to be something you're playing. It'll just be a random one that you have in your Steam library, and it'll be like, "Here's 5 cards in this pack. Open your pack up," and it'll be like, "Okay." I don't know what, like, I still to this day don't know what really triggers it. It just sometimes it shows up in my Steam library, and I'm like, "Oh, okay," and then I'll usually sell those.
You're telling me that this gaming platform at times will give me gifts?
To an extent, yes.
Dude, you should, I don't know, maybe you should work in PR or something for Steam, because you got me, bro. Like, I'm sold on these freaking cards. But speaking of big change-ups, let's hop into the news. Yeah. Sound good?
Yeah.
You excited now? Our first news story is over on Polygon. It is written by Michael McWhirter, maybe. I've said his name
Wow,
like 5
that
times.
is a long last name.
Yeah, he's got an awesome name. This is PlayStation Worldwide Studios president Shuhei Yoshida steps down. There's a new shakeup at PlayStation as Shuhei Yoshida is stepping down as president of Sony Interactive Entertainment's Worldwide Studio. Replacing him is Herman Holst, managing director and co-founder of Guerrilla Games, the developers behind Killzone and most recently Horizon Zero Dawn. Yoshida will be remaining with Sony, however, as the head of a newly formed initiative that will focus on nurturing external independent creators. In a press release, the president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Jim Ryan, called Holst. I don't really care about Holst. This is pretty much, I just want to know about Shuhei Yoshida.
You don't care about Holst? He's the new guy. Come on, man.
Yeah. He's the new big guy, and that's really awesome for him. I don't know if that's really going to shake up a lot of what's happening at Sony. I hope it does, but the bigger deal about this is really for like Shuhei Yoshida for me. Yoshida's new role will concentrate on our diverse community of independent developers, ensuring that they have the tools, technology, and services to reach PlayStation's large community of gamers successfully, according to Sony. Everybody knows how passionate Shu is about independent games. They are lifeblood of the industry. They are the lifeblood of the industry is what I'm assuming he's supposed to be saying. They are the lifeblood of the industry, making our content portfolio as special for our gamers. Ryan said, "These wildly creative experiences deserve focus and a champion like Shu at PlayStation who will ensure the entire SIE organization works together to better engage with independent developers through a culture of supporting and celebrating their contributions to PlayStation platforms." This is, I mean, it's a big deal for me. I'm really excited about it. Sony, I was bummed when Sony came out and said, we talked about it on the podcast a while ago. There was an article over on gamesindustry.biz. I believe it was in actually an interview with Jim Ryan where he said that PlayStation is actually going to be focusing on the larger AAA developed games when PlayStation 5 comes out. And I'm not going to say that they're not going to do that, but it's nice that they're at least seemingly gearing up in every direction, both AAA and independent, and they're actually kind of like, they have this new liaison. They have this new, ambassador to indie games over at Sony, and I think that's awesome. I think it's only going to help independent developers, especially since no matter how much Jim Ryan might contest this, apparently, I can't find that quote anywhere, but I've heard literally everyone talk about it. Sony has not put a whole lot of effort into their independent creators and the relationships with them. I mean, it's just evident by how much, how many of them have fled basically Sony's ecosystem and gone to the Nintendo Switch. Also, I don't know if that's also because there's so I've been wondering recently and forever if the relation between the independent games on Nintendo Switch and the sales of independent games on Switch are who's actually not benefiting. Who's the reason that happened? Are they selling so much on Switch because they're on Switch, or is the Switch responsible, or are the independent games responsible? Is kind of what I'm wondering.
The old chicken before the egg question.
Yeah. I personally think the indie games are actually helping sell these consoles, because the Nintendo Switch for a long time didn't actually have a massive stable of first party games on it, and now it's got a shitload of fucking indie games, and you can play ARMS, I guess, or 1-2 Switch. So that's a bonus.
For a while the Switch really it had its heavy hitters. You can't knock Super Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild, but after you get past their main line, that's always been Nintendo's big issue, is people buy their consoles just for those few games, but there has historically been an issue where Nintendo is we've got really good games, but not a lot. And that's where the indies, especially for the Switch side, really kind of balance that for them, because for a while there, I believe even this year, Nintendo's had a great year, but even in the earliest part of the year, it was really just, kind of living off a lot of the indies that were there.
I would assume so, yeah. Because they haven't, until, I think, Super Mario, Mario Maker 2, did they have, another big release since, its launch year?
I think in January they had the remake of the Super Mario Brothers, the Wii U.
The Wii U
game.
one?
Yeah, the
that was
remake.
ported over to Switch?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess it was just a port. But, yeah, so I think
That's
they
still
had
a big deal.
that.
Apparently it's one of the best Mario games I've heard.
I don't think so, but okay.
I don't know. That's probably a bad opinion. That was probably a hot take from Jared Petty or something, but I'm not 100% sure.
Whatever. I mean, Super Mario World and Super Mario Bros. 3, those are the classics. So, can't beat them.
So, how do you feel about Shuhei Yoshida now having this kind of integral position at Sony where he's just going to be interacting with independent developers? I mean, you're not a PlayStation guy, really. You have a PlayStation, but it's not your main console.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about it?
I don't really care. I mean, I don't mean to be, negative. I think it's cool. I think it's what PlayStation, I don't know why I was gonna call them just PS5. I think it's what PlayStation needs to do. It's a smart take because, going full in on just their platform exclusives is great. But I think that ultimately they're gonna run into the same kind of issues that, I was mentioning, Nintendo had if they do try to do something like that, where if they leverage themselves to just that and they're not pushing for any of those indie games to come to their system, people are going to find the games that they want in other areas. And if they're not constantly in your ecosystem, you're losing money because it's going to make them less likely to get something like PS Now or whatever they have. I really don't know because I just don't. Because
PlayStation Now is a thing.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of with it.
Whatever they have.
I don't know, man. They're doing something over there. Those PlayStation boys and girls. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's the right move. I think it's good from an indie perspective, but I think it's going to be really hard to sway in one direction just because Nintendo has really grasped that, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon until... I don't know. I feel like it's the perfect area for a lot of those indie games because it gives people a very cheap entrance into it.
Yeah. I personally think that Sony is just gearing up. They want to make sure that either way the PlayStation 5's like launch goes, they are prepared, because historically PS3 did not launch especially well because the price was excessively high.
Yeah.
And there was a time when there weren't a whole lot of exclusives to push the sale of PS3, but what kept them alive was actually indies. The same thing goes for the PlayStation Vita. What kept it alive was indie games.
Right.
So I think they're kind of just covering their asses. They're like, hey, just in case our first party stable isn't like the massive system sellers that we think they're going to be, we can fall back on indie games.
I mean, it's smart because historically the popularity of consoles has always flip-flopped between generations. So it's technically Xbox's turn.
Yeah, or maybe, I mean, it's like never Nintendo's turn.
I mean, because Nintendo kind of they pave their own
just
road.
do their own
yeah,
thing.
they really
Yeah.
do. They're the console wars is literally just Xbox going up against PlayStation. Nintendo has no concerns with that because Nintendo etches out its own area. Like, you'll never be able to play a game that is Nintendo on anything other than that. And you'll always have these weird, quirky elements that you won't find anywhere else. Like, it's just what Nintendo does. It's a whole different beast.
Yeah. Speaking of a whole different beast, let's move on to our next news story. This one is over on GameScoop.
You make it sound like it's bad.
What the fuck?
GameScoop.
GameSpot. No, I have like some nasal issues because I'm getting over a cold, and I'm just like super fucking shit up. I mean, I just fuck shit up normally.
That's
so.
true. It's time for video game 20 questions.
So this one is over on GameSpot. It is written by Eddie McCook. I feel like eventually we're gonna actually like I might meet this guy later in life and be
hope
like,
we do.
I've been fucking your name up for years.
Mr. McCook.
So this is Dragon Age Riders' new musical adventure game reaches funding goal. Chorus, a musical adventure, the next game from Dragon Age writer David Gator, I'm going to say, which is a dope name, or Guider, either way, that's a dope name, has reached its funding target, meaning production is now officially set to begin. The game crossed its 600,000 funding target on November 5th. It currently stands at 612,756 at press time, which is 102% of their funding goal. I think it's actually gone even higher now. It's over on Fig.
Damn.
The developers Summerfall Studios released a celebratory video in which Gator thanks fans for their support and said he really can't wait to get started on the project. Another lead developer, Liam Essler, maybe? I don't know. He's a pretty boy, though. He's got a sweet beard, a fantastic accent. Yeah, I'd kiss him right on the mouth for a poster, you know what I mean?
Wow, really? I feel like that's an insult. I mean, you suck that other guy's dick and you're just going to kiss him on the mouth?
Well,
Feels
this
like
guy
a
seems
downgrade.
classy. He doesn't work at
okay.
fucking
You're right.
GameStop.
You're right.
I'm not having to blow a dude that's making $7 an hour. Nah, dude. This fucking guy, he makes video games.
Yeah, you got to wine and dine him first.
And then just slob on the knob like corn on the cob. Get me all the posters, you know what I mean?
This is such a gross episode.
Liam Essler said, thank you so much, composer Austin. I don't know why they had to include that quote. It was literally just thank you so much. Composer Austin Wintry added, thank you. That's crazy. We hope to do you proud. The chorus has a number of stretch goals. Okay, that doesn't really matter. It got funded. That's really cool. This game looks awesome. Yeah, there's big names on this. Most notably, there is Troy Baker, who's like, I don't know what his title specifically was. It said something like voice lead or something weird in their actual trailer on Fig. It was a little odd, but that's really cool. They also either Anthony Rapp said he wanted to be included in this, or he actually is. He is one of the characters on Star Trek Discovery, and he's actually been on like Kind of Funny Games Daily, I think twice. He seems like a really cool dude. He's very eclectic and weird, and apparently has an obsession with Bloodborne, which is pretty cool. Everyone's obsessed with Bloodborne, by the way. It's a little weird.
For sure.
I feel like I need to get into it.
Nope. Fuck that.
Nah. He's
Nah.
like, I'd rather bite my dick off than play Bloodborne.
I have no interest. Like, the only interest I have is I wish I could be part of the discussion of, like, Bloodborne. But no, I'm not going to play that fucking game.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy who's like, I swear, everyone in the games industry says they're in a perpetual state of playing Bloodborne.
Yeah, for real. I don't know what it is. Like, is that why I can't, get in, like, break into the industry? Is because I don't play Bloodborne? Clearly, that's the reason.
Apparently. Literally, I'm not even joking. I swear to God, on every episode of Podcast Beyond, Brian Altano and Max Scoville,
yes,
they talk about Bloodborne
yes.
for like 20 minutes, and I have no problem with it because it's so fucking interesting. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's like listening to Chris Penwell talk about Kingdom Hearts. I had to message him on Twitter. I DM'd him, and I was like, dude, I'm listening to Let's Be Geek, and I want to play Kingdom Hearts because of how passionate you guys are about this. Passion really gets me.
I guess
so yeah.
Apparently I wasn't passionate enough for getting you into it, though.
You know what you were passionate about, though? Steam carts. So
yeah.
Let me have to get me some of those. How do you feel about Chorus? I don't know if you're a big Dragon Age fan, but this game does look a little weird because in the opening animation, she's just like, yeah, this fucking chick was at my house and then she did. I don't know how she fucking died. I was like, that was the fastest escalation I've seen in my life.
Well,
literally, it's like they're dead.
They don't have time to, set the stage. They just got to get right into it.
They have like a fucking 19-minute video or some shit that's like 5 minutes of them talking about their game, and 2 seconds of it's like, that bitch dead.
I mean, it really clears things up. You know exactly what's happening right away.
Yeah, it gets you into the action immediately.
Yeah.
So I cut you off. Are you excited about this?
Yes and no. So I'm a fan of the Dragon Age games. I've never really... So I've only played like 1 or 2, and I've never really played it to its completion. They're games that I enjoy, but never really carried me to the finish line, so to speak. Which is kind of a shame because I enjoy that style. It's very, KOTOR-esque, which are some of my favorite games. But I don't see that in this, just because this is more of, and I'm not even too sure because it's kind of confusing. This is more of just a narrative game, correct? There's not like...
Yeah, it seems like a musical adventure game.
Yeah, so there's not really like a battling system. It's going to be more of pick and choose the right conversation or musical notes or something to that. Like, it'll be a good story is where I think this is going to go, and it's going to have the best part of an experience in this game being that there will be the narrative that, pulls you through. But I've never been that crazy into those kind of games if there's not some other mechanic into it. So I don't know how excited I am until I see more of what the game really looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're going to see what it looks like anytime soon, considering it doesn't seem like they've even started at all. They just received, a shitload of money, so they're going to start soon.
Got to fast track that shit. Got to kill that bitch.
So quickly. I think the bringing up Dragon Age it definitely makes sense that they would bring up Dragon Age to kind of lend
the narrative portion to it, I guess.
Yeah, but bringing it up like you immediately went to, there's not going to be like combat in this game, so it's not going to be anything like Dragon Age. Like, it's not going to be that feel.
Right.
This... For narrative fans, it looks like it might be a fantastic game. For people who are looking for gameplay, it's... The jury's out on that. We don't know if there's going to be great gameplay, but hopefully there will be.
We'll see. We probably won't see anything from this for another 2-3 years, though, so we'll just have to hopefully be pleasantly surprised.
That is what I'm hoping for. Speaking of being surprised, let's hop over to our next news story, which, you're not really going to be surprised about because this game's awesome and they continue to update it. This is Alex Gibson over on Twinfinite. He writes, new Dead Cells Corrupted update makes 83 changes, including new biome. Developer Motion Twin has today announced the arrival of a big new patch for its critically acclaimed roguelite, Dead Cells, called the Corrupted update. It makes 83 changes and adds all new content to the game. A new mini biome mirrors prison Depths, which is, I don't know why that's so hard to read.
I don't know.
But
it's tough.
it offers offering shorter challenges featuring one curse chest at the beginning, a new item called Scroll Fragment or Fragments. Have also been introduced, which can be combined to make a whole triple scroll. Also, there's I don't know what a lot of this means.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually played this game, so I feel like a lot of the lingo in this is pretty over my head.
Yeah, it's like a triple scroll, and I'm like, what the okay. That's like, I mean, I don't know. That's like telling somebody that I found the Elder Scroll, and they're like, what does that mean? I
think triple scroll is referring to you have like upgrades in the game based on the different color of I think it was the weapon you use. God, it's been so long since I played and they keep changing it. But I guess that's meaning it's upgrading your certain attacks in a strong way.
I need to get back into Dead Cells. I just keep getting my freaking dick kicked in, so I'm gonna have to give it a while longer. But also there is a new meta update that's unlockable after beating the Hand of the King. It's designed for players tackling the game's higher difficulty levels called Recycling Tubes. It replaces the starting gear with 4 sets of 5 random items, ranged or melee ranged, shields, and 2 skills. Players can choose which ones to start with. Cool. Elsewhere in the Corrupted update, there's an Explorer's Instinct, a new rune which reveals the whole map and points of interest and complete rebalancing of the biomes and paths. And the final bits of like noteworthy content are Crow's Feet, which allows players to place up to 9 crow's feet on the ground to damage and slow enemies. So it seems like those are caltrops. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming, but okay, they're crow's feet. The Tactical Retreat, which slows nearby enemies, preventing them from inflicting melees by dodging them just in time. I don't know why I got like such a dry throat right there. And Networking, which links all enemies that have a projectile lodged in them, which is the grossest way to say that. Yeah. Sounds so disgusting. Which shares the damage taken between all of those guys. So are you excited about this? Are you going to get back into Dead Cells? It was just put on Xbox Game Pass, I know.
Think, that's actually what I was thinking
a couple weeks ago.
I think I'm just going to load it up there and just start fresh because I don't remember anything. And because there's been so many changes since I played when it was in early access that I feel like just going into it completely new is probably the right way to do it. And I have it on Xbox Game Pass, so I should probably just load it up there.
So it actually is on the PC version, correct? Because you don't actually have an Xbox One.
I do not. But I believe it is part of Xbox Game Pass PC. Let me double check just to be sure so I can be, horribly upset in a second that my plans aren't going to work.
Just horribly upset.
Sometimes it happens.
I mean, it is a roguelite, so no matter where you enter into it, you pretty much get the tutorial because there is none. So
yeah, but it'd be nice if it was just there.
Yeah, dude, you get knockoff caltrops too.
I know.
Crow's feet.
Fucking crow's feet. It's you can play Dead Cells with Xbox Game Pass for PC. Hell yeah!
That guy just biding time. It's you just become Tony the Tiger.
It happens. Sometimes it happens, All right, so not disappointed, and maybe I'll play and talk about it next week. But probably not, because I have a lot of games to still play. We'll see.
All right, let's bring down this podcast because speaking of disappointments, our last news article for today is over on Nintendo Life. It is written by Gavin Lane. Dude, new fucking writer over on Nintendo Life, I swear. It's not one of the 2 we've heard of. This one's Gavin Lane. Okay, guys? He writes, Kickstarter canceled for Vertebreaker, the retro platformer from Sonic Mania devs. We actually talked about this last week in God Bless the Crowd.
We did.
So this is an interesting update. It's pretty depressing.
It's really depressing.
In an update to their original article, they say, in an update to the Kickstarter page, headcanon developer Stealth, real name Simon Thomley, maybe, has confirmed that the crowdfunding campaign for Vertebreaker has been canceled after 1 week, calling the campaign a spectacular failure. He has also outlined the problems in the video below, which they include a video which he talks about some of the problems with kind of like his own financial troubles and also some of the problems with the Vertebreaker campaign. But let's get into the news article first, and then we'll talk about the video a little bit. The developer states that after 1 week, the 16-bit style game raised only 5% of its goal, with momentum dropping to almost nothing. He also goes into detail about his personal circumstances following the success of Sonic Mania and a Darkwing Duck remaster prototype he was working on, and how this led to a rush Vertebreaker campaign. Despite the huge success of Sonic Mania, Thomley has as a contractor doesn't see continued sales royalties, and he discussed the incorrect perception that he must be wealthy following his involvement in the game. Vertebreaker certainly looked very promising. Okay, that doesn't matter. So they canceled the Vertebreaker Kickstarter campaign. I believe when we checked it out, it had like $15,000, but they were looking for like $222,000, which was, we both agreed, excessive. That was a lot. So how do you feel about this? He put out a 19-minute video. I only got to watch like probably 5 to 10 minutes before this podcast. That video is depressing. It's super sad.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, considering it's a canceled campaign, but hearing about his circumstances is super sad.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see because it puts a lot of perspective in a place that I really didn't think about. Because one of the things that he said, and this is kind of something that I thought as well, is especially when teams are working on something like, Sonic Mania, where that was a hit. That was a crazy project that ended up working out, and a lot of people love it. It's gotten, a lot of respect from the community, from Sonic games. But what you really don't think about is the way that contract was written up, is that, it's not their game because it's licensed by Sega, and you can't really actually have that game. So he was just a contract worker throughout that. So he literally has no money from that game other than when he was just working on it to get it out. It sucks that there's no like proceeds from what he did to actually put in his pocket after all the sales. So he's basically just broke as fuck. And
yeah,
it
he
sucks.
even says he's like flat broke.
Yeah. Like it's really heart-wrenching too, because the guy seems like a super chill individual, but he's just like, yep, things were going well when we did the Sonic Mania thing because we got some money. We then, were able to get our life kind of on track and get out of debt.
Yeah, they paid off all their debts. They moved out of like his mother-in-law's house. They bought a new car.
Yeah, and then from that, they go to, I don't actually have a job. I'm trying to put all of my chips on this, basically, like chips on the whole bet. And it didn't pull through, which, blows, but that happens sometimes. But it is really rough. And it's interesting because I didn't even know, because I think we talked about this Darkwing Duck thing. Or maybe it wasn't us.
Yeah, way back when we did.
Yeah, like a long time. I didn't know it was basically him as well. Or this team, which is interesting, and that didn't pan out either. So it's been like a number of failures back to back, which is super heartbreaking.
Yeah, it seems like he was also trying to like make money on Patreon as well,
right,
while working on this like game engine that I believe that we talked about in the Kickstarter page. How I was using that game engine. Mm-hmm. There's so many sad things about this. This team had been trying to get like Vertebreaker off the ground for a while,
right,
but he even says that like they didn't know how to make the like grappling hook mechanic work. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, dude, just look at Flint Hook, right?
Damn,
it's good shit. No, I'm just kidding. I imagine they were probably trying to get it off the ground by the time that like around the time that Flint Hook came out, but yeah, this is just really sad in general. It's sad to hear an indie game developer going through hardships. It's sad to hear anybody going through hardships. Exactly. But also, it just super sucks because knowing everything that went into Sonic Mania, they were originally creating it not necessarily to be like this large commercial product, but it was just a fan game. They just wanted a good Sonic game. And like you said, the community reception and critical reception of this, it's highly regarded. People say this is like the best Sonic game in years. It was like a return to form for Sonic. And to hear that the game developer is like, yeah, I got paid like a lump sum in the beginning and then nothing. Like, because they worked with Sega the whole time and it's Sega's IP, they just basically allowed them to use it and actually make some money off of it. It's a depressing scenario.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully they're able to do something and come back with, a more appealing Kickstarter, whether that being changing the funding goal, like the actual tiered price that they have right now, or if that's finding some way to make it a little bit more appealing to a wider audience. I don't know.
As well as adding like real stretch goals other than just adding to the team.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't any real, like, we talked about this last week. Their stretch goals weren't necessarily like things that would help things that would be cool for consumers. Yeah. They were instead things that would help the developer, which is really, really cool. But typically I would say your standard like purchaser or backer of Kickstarter games aren't necessarily thinking they're doing it to help the developer. They're doing it to get in on the ground floor of something they think is cool. They're doing it for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to sell that idea to anyone. It's a nice to have kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's really sad. I'm glad we brought you guys down right before we hop into some news, Cram.
Hell yeah. Let's get crammed!
News Cram is our weekly wrap-up segment where we, the hosts of Indie Incursion and Indie Games Podcast, cram you full of all sorts of indie games news. This week, we actually have 3 different quick news stories for you. Before we hop into some new stuff, no deals for you this week. Sorry about that. I just couldn't find any really good ones.
Okay.
I actually just couldn't find any in general because nobody's fucking putting out news stories about indie games. It's annoying as shit. It takes me seriously like a couple hours to find the amount of indie games news stories that I have.
Oof.
Yeah, it's depressing. So, our first quick news story this week is actually a follow-up from last week. Word comes by way of Nintendo Life that Superhero Games, sole physical publisher of Image Inform's most recent release, SteamWorld Quest, has confirmed that depending on the sales of the aforementioned SteamWorld title, they've been given the go-ahead to release both SteamWorld Heist and SteamWorld Dig physically, yet no consoles are confirmed at this point.
Heist is
You gonna buy those big bad boys? Yeah,
I mean, I loved Heist. I might. Who knows? Who am I kidding?
I will say, the big allure to collectors with the Super Rare Games SteamWorld Quest is that not only is SteamWorld Quest only on the Nintendo Switch, but they're only like physically publishing it. They are exclusively physically publishing this versus SteamWorld Heist and Dig have already been published physically.
Right.
So I don't know if it's going to see as large of a return as SteamWorld Quest would, and I would assume that would actually kind of go poorly for them because they're assuming that they would also get I'm assuming that they're assuming that they will get like as much or like a decent amount of sales from doing Quest and Heist, but Dig and Heist, but I doubt they will because they already exist physically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them getting a lot on Heist. I think Dig is more of a thing just because they have, the nostalgia of that's really where they started kind of a thing. And many people from this series who are, supporters of the SteamWorld games always have such high regards for Dig. But I do agree with you. I think that's an interesting point. I don't think they're in the mindset where I mean, they're such old games. I feel like you can't be tricked into thinking you're going to make, buco bucks from something that old where it's at a point where it's old in the fact that it hasn't been out, for a good amount of time, but it's not old enough where it's like classic kind of, oh, this is so retro kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a weird time for them to try to re-release something like that.
Yeah, and plus the added benefit of the line of retail that they're in is that they basically cater to collectors. People who buy these games they're there to collect it.
Right.
Otherwise, you would just buy the digital copy. So I imagine it'll still be alluring that they could purchase this, like have a Nintendo Switch copy.
Maybe.
To fill out like their full Switch collection. Because people do that. As well as, this is also reported by Nintendo Life, that Gentle Love in conjunction with Yacht Club Games are releasing a new album featuring lullaby versions of your favorite Shovel Knight songs. The album will be released this holiday on a plethora of listening services as well as a limited physical release. I think they said in the article that they're only doing 3,000 CDs as the limited physical release. So if you guys want to get it on disc, make sure you keep an eye out for that this holiday. And in the article, they actually included some of the tracks. This sounds dope. It sounds good. I will say it slaps. I'm not going to say it's a banger. I'm never going to say anything's a banger.
On.
But
it's just like our podcast.
I'm not going to say it. That shit slaps, though. That's good stuff. I listened to it for a solid, 40 minutes, and there's only, 3 songs, and each of them are, 2 minutes long.
Damn.
So, yeah, it's, a nice mix of, I don't know, it's, hushed tones. It's got, sweet saxophone and stuff. It's really relaxing, which makes sense, considering they're meant to be, lullaby versions.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
So that checks out. I guess they accomplished what they were going for.
Yeah,
and lastly, another boutique limited run service has popped up and is called Game Fairy. For their first release, they'll be publishing Bridge Constructor Portal exclusively on the Nintendo Switch, but there are only 3,000 copies available, and pre-orders will go live on November 13th. So if you're listening to this and want a copy, you better hurry. November 13th is actually when we're recording this. So by the time you're hearing this, it's the 15th. So hopefully you can actually pick up a copy of Bridge Constructor Portal. I'm not going to guarantee you can, but there are I don't know how popular this game is, but there are really popular limited run games that I purchased days after. So, and this isn't necessarily a big collector's edition. So, I don't think it's going to be I don't think it'll sell out really, really quickly is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, we could just tweet about it now.
Yeah, after the podcast maybe we should tweet about it.
Maybe. We'll do it.
Now let's hop into some new stuff. Our first 3 items in new stuff come by way of Nintendo Life, where it's reported that by the time you're listening to this, Mad Games Tycoon, a game development simulator, will be available on Nintendo Switch. Retro 2D platformer Blue Kid 2 will be released on the Nintendo Switch November 18th. And last but not least, Jamestown Plus will be released on the Nintendo Switch on December 12th. Now we're moving over to GameSpot, where it's reported that reverse horror game Carrion will hit store shelves on the Xbox One and PC in 2020, as well as the news that Eclectic Wadham, by the developers of Katamari, will finally release on PlayStation 4 and PC through the Epic Game Store on December 7th.
Also, hell yeah.
Not 7th, it's the 17th, by the way. And I don't know why I said Katamari. I feel like I got that right, but I was pronouncing it weird.
Katamari.
Instead of Katamari, I was like, Katamari.
It's like calamari, but with a T, little cat.
Yeah. This game's got dancing poop in it.
I mean, if a game
hopefully that sells it.
If a game doesn't have dancing poop, it's not my kind of game. You know what I'm saying?
Sounds like Wadham is your kind of game.
Oh,
then.
Hell yeah.
And lastly, We Happy Few is getting its final DLC, which will be releasing on November 19th. Now over on Polygon, where it is reported that highly anticipated follow-up to The Binding of Isaac: The Legend of Bumbo is now on PC via Steam.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I need to get that audio of me saying that just clipped and just keep playing it.
It adds a soundboard.
Yeah,
hell
can
yeah,
we
hell
do
yeah,
that?
hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
I don't know how soundboards work, if I'm being completely honest, but
man.
Maybe.
Let's get a soundboard. We got to clip a couple of things. We'll clip my hell yeah. We'll clip my fuck 'em. We'll clip. I don't know. We'll find some good stuff.
Yeah, fuck 'em's got to be your catchphrase now.
I mean,
You're like, fuck 'em.
It's I don't know. There's just something about that phrase.
It just gets your point across so well.
Yeah, it's true. The minute you hear that, you know exactly how I feel.
And lastly, Twinfinite reports that where the water tastes like wine, not lasts. I don't know why I wrote last. Where the water tastes like wine is headed to PlayStation 4 on December 2nd, and Riverbond is headed to the Nintendo Switch on December 10th. So, Big Josh Boy, we've been blessed with so many amazing indie games news stories that it's about time we give back to the creators in God Bless the Crowd. This is our segment where we hop into all sorts of crowdfunding sites and talk about some indie games. Typically, the Big Josh Boy finds them, unless he's not here, and then I don't find him at all. I just skip the segment. So
then wouldn't that mean I always find them?
Yes. Today we've got two indie games news story. Nope, we've got two games. I'm all frazzled now. I don't know why.
It's okay.
I'm like, in my head, I feel like I should have eaten a corn dog or something.
Wow, that's oddly specific.
Yeah, and I don't have any corn dogs, so it's specific for absolutely no reason.
Well,
the two games we've got are Alwa's Legacy and Guinea Pig Parkour. These two, good picks.
Thank you.
Good picks.
Thank you.
So Alwa's Legacy, this is over on Kickstarter. It is a modern retro adventure game filled with magic, secrets, and exploration. The team is going for a $25,738 goal. I don't know why that tripped me up so much either.
That was weird.
They currently have $16,457 with 473 backers and 21 days left to go to purchase the game. And I hate currency exchanges, dude.
I know. It's so weird.
It keeps fucking throwing me off. I saw 200 and I was like, bullshit, this game is $200. No, it's $21 US. So what do you feel about Alwa's Legacy?
It looks pretty legit, honestly. It's very old school, obviously. It seems to be going for very similar to like a Super Nintendo kind of feel to it, with I guess a little bit more, because it's obviously animated in a way that's a little bit crisper and cleaner than it would have been back on the Super Nintendo. But it looks very close to a Castlevania mixed with kind of an old school Zelda game. It looks really good, to be honest. I think that this, from what they have already, seems very polished, which is not always the norm with these kind of games. And I think there's a good variety of spells, a good variety of different enemies that I'm seeing, of various things that you have to do. I like how there's certain areas where you have like a floating ability, and there's these spikes on the ground that you have to use. You can make bubbles and jump on those. You can make little like square things that you throw at enemies. There seems to be a good amount of variability in the different types of actions that you can take in the game. I don't know how well that will translate into the actual world itself, but so far from what I've seen, it definitely has a lot of promise to it.
They do point out on their Kickstarter page that you can customize the way you play with their upgrade system. You could choose how you want to play, explorative, offensive, or strategic. It's your choice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this game seems really cool. I was actually expecting you to kind of talk shit about the gameplay, because I thought that some of the combat just didn't look as like crisp as it could. The spells look really interesting, but when it comes down to like some of the like melee
attack,
the slashing just does not look good.
No, it does not.
But this is early alpha footage.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm not really attacking them for that. I definitely think if they don't clean it up a bit, it'll be kind of an issue. But what it would essentially boil down to is, I hope that if they're not going to put much emphasis into the sword play, they'll instead have it with more of these unique type of abilities. Because if anything, it's one of those, you know, if you're building your own character, I would just go into the heavy side of, I want to do a bunch of spells and fight my way through the game in unique abilities that are available, rather than just walking up and hacking and slashing. Because it seems like that's one of the appeals to this game, as opposed to just playing it like a Zelda style of just running up to an enemy and doing like a spin attack or something like that.
Yeah, something that I find really, really cool about this game, I mean, since we're on the subject, is actually the depth of spells it seems to have. That it's not just like these attack spells, which we constantly see in Metroidvanias and retro games, where they might like boast a lot of spells, but the majority of them are actually just different cool attack spells. Similar to like Wizard of Legend has a lot of spells, but most of them are offensive or possibly defensive spells, whereas this game has like weird maneuverability spells where you can like hover. They have kind of like the force field that you can set over spikes to hover. Like you said, they have that kind of like gelatinous cube.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That doubles as kind of like this defensive wall as well as an attack. They have the bubbles, which seem to help you with your maneuverability because you can use them as platforms. The game just looks really, really cool, I think. And I also, there's two things that I really, really love about this.
If you say the slimes.
No, I wasn't actually going to say that because I haven't seen a just straight up slime. They have that cube, but it's not sentient. Oh, fuck. Really?
Scroll down right before the part that talks about the music composer.
Oh, shit. That's a cute-ass slime, big boy. It's got the eye. I love that slime design. It's so cool. It reminds me a lot of the slime design in Moonlighter. But Moonlighter, they're like red, and they have like one really big eye versus these are green and a small eye. No, what I was going to say is the pixel art looks really, really good in just the standard, like, it's like to the side 2D, where it has the chibi characters. And then when they go in to actually do the conversations, it has their portraits. And damn, those look good. They look fantastic, which is typically, I don't want to say not the case. Normally, like with games with like, conversation bubbles and stuff like this, like specifically I'm thinking of Don't Give Up. When it originally was like placed on Kickstarter, it had like kind of it's like rough looking pixel art, but then when you went into the conversations, it was also like rough pixel art, but just larger characters, which they then updated to make it like these really, really nice hand-drawn characters, which I really loved, to make one side of it pretty, in a way, is kind of what I'm getting at. But both are pretty. It's got its standard pixel art, which looks great, and I love its cute chibi characters. And then it has this conversation system that has these awesome pixel portraits. I really, really like this. I think this game looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean,
this was a good pick. Good pick.
Oh, I thank you. It's there's a lot of things going well for them in this. I think this will I'd be very shocked if this didn't make it, first off, because it's very close to its goal already. It's a good, what is this, like 60-ish%?
Oh my god, the slimes also crawl on the ceiling. Fuck yeah, dude. This game's awesome.
And they still have 21 days to go, so I assume that this is going to get picked up. I don't know if this is going to be a game I'll right away back, but it's something that I'm going to be watching and definitely want to see kind of how it progresses, because I'm sure they're going to make it, and over time I'm sure will want this game depending on how it transforms at the end.
Yeah, and something that's also cool is they're shooting toward seemingly all platforms for the most part. They're aiming toward Nintendo Switch, Steam, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and GOG. And I don't see anywhere where it's saying that any of those are hidden behind kind of stretch goals like normal. So that's pretty dope. I like that they're I like that their initial thought is to put it on all consoles instead of just kind of like, oh, we're going to put it on PC, maybe Nintendo Switch, and then as a stretch goal, PS4.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing to do because you're marketing to a specific audience, which in some cases is seen as a little negative, just because one might argue that if you think your audience is going to obviously want it on a certain platform, to put it behind a paywall of, oh, we need extra money because your intention is saying those individuals are going to shell out because they're like, oh, well, I really want it for the Switch, so I'll do it. There's also, you could think of that on the flip side of some people won't put in money until they see it get closer to that, just because they're like, oh, well, if it's not even close, I'm not going to back it if I don't have the obvious me getting it on my platform. But it all depends on like how you're looking at it. I obviously would rather it just be available to all consoles, but there's also a lot more that goes into that, and more, beginner type of, weird way to put it, but some of the more not as veteran and beginner Kickstarter individuals who sign up and have their project and they want to do this, they might not know how to go about that. They might understand that there are obvious initial negative parts to trying to get that acceptance and going into putting the amount of code that you have to use for each different port, the amount of work that goes into it, the amount of money. There's a lot of resource and investment that goes into this, and for some, they really just can't do it. So it has to be a stretch goal because they don't anticipate having the money or the time for that, for the specific game.
Yeah. At the risk of sounding like kind of weird and using this in somewhat of a derogatory way, they might be pulling like a Platonic where they're like promising things in the Kickstarter that they might not actually like. That might just not be feasible. Like they're saying that they want to bring it to all these consoles, which luckily they do actually have their timeline. Where there's Fuck, I like scrolled up and now I gotta scroll all the way back down. Their timeline, they have this game actually releasing in spring of 2020, which is weird.
It's pretty soon.
But yeah, that's pretty damn soon considering their Kickstarter launched November. But their game launches on Steam, PC Mac and Linux, and Nintendo Switch. They don't mention the Xbox One or PlayStation 4. So maybe they're just planning on getting it on Steam and Nintendo Switch and then working on the ports. But I'm also kind of interested because normally we talk about the like large sums of money that people are asking for, but these guys aren't asking for very much money, and there's like seemingly like 6 to 8 people working on this, like including their like external team, their like music composer, their sound designer. Like there's like 6 to 8 people.
Yeah, I think that goes into the obvious reality that this game is at a state that's pretty set for release. I think the last bit of money that they're asking for is just enough to get them over the line, whereas the problem is with Kickstarters is every person is starting at a different part of the development phase for games. They only need that much because they probably have a lot of it done, and they've already sank excess money that was probably part of that team that they had originally into what is now this game, so that, you know, in that sense, they're not asking for as much. But that's just because the difference between like this and Vertebreaker is Vertebreaker was nowhere near as polished as this game is, because they're about ready to release in, you know, what is it, basically like half a year.
Yeah, spring 2020, so just about half a year. Yeah, that's what they're shooting for. Yeah, I get what you're saying. This game looks good already, and I definitely think it's going to hit its goal, especially with 21 days left to go. And I hope it does, because it looks really, really cool. I'm going to have to actually try out the demo. The only thing, like I said, that I actually have a problem with is that weird-ass looking fucking like staff strike. It just looks so weird. But like we prefaced it with, it is like alpha footage, so there is that. But let's talk about Guinea Pig Parkour. This is inspired by the animated platformers, cartoon shows, and graphic adventure games of the 90s. This team is looking for $20,000. That is their goal. They currently have $11,165 with 602 backers and 22 days left to go. Supposedly, this is a solo developer, but I guess the music and sound effects were done by Fat Bard. So, like, on Twitter the other day...
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, Greg Lobanov posted, like, a question asking why people call themselves solo developers when they work with, like, music composers and stuff like that, which I guess because they're solo developing the game itself?
Solo game developer.
Yeah, he does actually point that out. I believe he says several times in the Kickstarter that he's a solo game developer. Like he does point out that there's like the music and sound effects are made by this Fat Bard person. But the game itself, to get in on your introductory tier, which I do appreciate that both of these games do not have that bullshit thanks tier. They both just start off with, this is how much it is for the game. For Alwa's Legacy, it was $21. For Guinea Pig Parkour, it's $10. And that's the early one. Then it's is 15 for the normal, but this game looks dope.
Yeah.
Like, it's a mix both between this, like, really solid animated platformer and just your normal adventure game. It reminds me a lot of Pajama Sam, which is really weird because that was not animated very well. But this game really is. It looks dope.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I've been seeing, it was kind of strange when I finally saw it on Kickstarter, because I've seen the animation that's been happening for this game for like so long. I had followed the developer on Twitter like a long time ago, and I just kept seeing this, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, what the hell is this? And it was just like animation of him jumping around and going through things, and I had always thought, wow, that's pretty cool, but I didn't think anything was actually coming of it. And then when I saw this, I was like, oh man, that's that guinea pig. He's actually running around, and it looks so crisp and clean. And actually it's weird because a lot of this doesn't look like gameplay. It looks like a weird just cartoon that you're watching because of how fluid everything is. So
yeah, this is animated really, really well.
Yeah, so that's one of the things, like, if that alone is kind of what's pushing me to be like, oh, this is, going to be worth bang for your buck, is just because it's such an interesting type of experience. But looking through, it actually looks kind of fun. Like, there's the fight sequence with this plumber that looks really crazy. Like, I wouldn't have expected this. But once again, it looks to a degree where it's like, it almost looks scripted because it's just so clean with the animation style to it.
Yeah, and I would also like to point out that in that fight scene specifically, you're using both the foreground and the background, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Because I expected this to, like, this sounds bad, but I kind of expect people to cut corners and make it kind of like, oh, it's a nice art piece in the background, but you can't really affect that. Mm-hmm. But no, he like jumps across the sink, he hops on the toilet, then hops on the toilet paper roll and uses that as kind of a bouncing board. Mm-hmm. It's really, really cool. This game is really interesting. And I'm surprised it's only developed by one guy and animated by one guy.
Yeah, it looks like a lot to this, because I mean, just thinking about how much work goes into animation, it's pretty impressive what he has. And granted, we're only looking at, a few clips. This isn't like anything where we see a full game. It's more of just chunks, but still, there's already a lot to this.
Yeah, and it should also be pointed out that this isn't like 3D animation, not 2D animation. It's hand-drawn animation.
Right.
This guy, like, he hand-drew all of these different, like, states. And from what I understand, hand-drawn animation takes, like, 10 times the amount that, like, 2D...
Every fucking frame. Like, this is so time-consuming.
Yeah, I imagine, like, rigging the character and making his animations, like, once you do that, it's slightly easier.
Right.
But then you have to animate, like, everything in the environments and all these other characters. This game is super impressive. That's honestly the if I had to describe this Kickstarter in one word, it's just impressive.
Yeah. Plus, it's given me, like, real hardcore Rocko's Modern Life vibes, and I love that cartoon.
Yeah, it seems kind of wacky, and it's, like, heavily inspired by the 90s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminds me, like, I didn't watch Rocko's Modern Life, which is, a hit on my fanboy card, I guess. Oof. But it's just, like, hardcore 90s, like, 90s Nickelodeon. Yeah. That's what this game looks like. It's awesome. It's fantastic. But let's round out this podcast with some random questions from our listeners. So we got 3 for today. There's some weird ones. So like I said, we're going to hear from Chase today.
Oh boy.
Chase wants to know, where do the legs of pilots go in BioWare's successful smash hit Anthem and when they hop into javelins? Did you play Anthem?
No, I did not, but I do have a theory.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right, and we talked a little bit about this before, but clearly this goes into what we talked about on the last episode. So they actually cut off their legs each time they get in and then become the suit itself.
Ah, so they're jacking in. They're like wiring in.
Yeah.
So have you actually seen the suits that they wear, the javelin suits?
Yeah, I've seen them.
their legs are so weird. They like giving them a second look, it's slightly more plausible. But when you really get a look at these legs, at times they're bent like fucking raptor legs. And like it's kind of like if you had no calves, you could pilot this armor. Like if you just your leg went from thigh to knee and then it was your foot, you could pilot this armor, but otherwise you're fucked. Like that's what this armor looks like, honestly. Their legs are fucking super weird, like raptor legs. They bend the wrong way. I don't know, personally. Yeah, I think the only conclusion is constantly cutting their legs off, jacking in. Yeah, I agree with you. That's the only way that this is possible.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, unless you're in the Colossus. The Colossus seems to have a lot of leg room, but also has these weird fucking raptor legs. But that's just at the end. The fucking, like, there's weird ass legs, dude. So uncomfortable. Our next question is from Jason from Parallax Media, actually. He writes in and says, I'm going to say right now, so he knows, I don't know how to say your last name and I didn't want to butcher it. So I just didn't.
It's okay. We still love you, Jason.
It's a cool name, but I don't know how to say it, so I'm not going to do it. If you could give any indie dev the budget of Death Stranding, who would it be and what would you want them to make? Big Josh Boy.
Yep.
Who would it be?
So this is going to be a weird one, but I was thinking about it, and I want a weird remastered version of The Binding of Isaac, but I want it done in an immaculate way where it's kind of similar to a Gears of War style. So it's like a third person, you're looking at your character, the back of them, and you're shooting and running through these different areas, these different rooms, and all the enemies are 3D and coming at you because, like, man, that game would look crazy. Like, some of the monsters and enemies in this game are horrific. And because it's so, like, cutely drawn in this little 2D animation style, it's more of, like, a joke kind of a thing. But, like, some of those blob monsters that attack you would be just downright horrific trying to face them.
These creepy-ass fucking fetuses.
Yeah, dude. Like, that game would be so crazy. I'm sure a lot of people would hate it, but I'd love to see what that looks like. Oh, yeah.
I imagine that would go over like when Sonic went from 2D to 3D. People would shit all over it.
But I think it would still be great.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see these poop and like fucking fetus monsters. I'd be super excited to see those. For me, it's kind of a cop-out. I would just give Team Cherry all the money. Make a fucking Quirrell game, dude. You're already making Hornet. Make Quirrell. Mm-hmm. My boy Quirrell. He got done dirty. I still don't. I don't believe the rumors. I'm not gonna ruin anything, but I don't believe it. Just telling anybody who knows what happened to him. Yeah. I don't believe it.
A Bug's Life.
It's bullshit.
Good time.
Yeah. It is A Bug's Life. And I just want more of that lore. I know we've got Silksong coming up probably next year, but
hopefully. I can't wait.
I just want more, dude. I'll give Team Cherry all the money to fucking give me some more Bug Boy games.
I mean, I'm sure they're not going to stop.
I hope. I mean, it's kind of like if they continue to make Hollow Knight games, I would somewhat feel bad, similar to the way I feel bad for Yacht Club having to basically like just consistently make Shovel Knight.
Right.
But I guess if they do these spin-off games, like they're making Silksong where you play as Hornet, and if they did fucking Quirrell, dude, there's like new gameplay mechanics, let alone the fact that it's like totally different environments. Hornet is seemingly being taken to an entirely different kingdom. We also don't know the timeline, whether this is before or after Hollow Nest, and the events of Hollow Knight, as far as I know. So I'm just super fucking stoked to play Silksong, and I just want Team Cherry to make more. And I hope they don't get sick of it. Yeah. And if they do, fucking, I don't know, make something cool, guys.
I mean, I don't think they will, though, because kind of what you were alluding to, this is like a totally different game. Yes, it's in that same kind of genre of a Metroidvania. It's in the same type of world because they're those bugs, and it is a recurring character, but it's a whole new kingdom. It's going to be a large slew of different environments and different characters to interact with. It's different mechanics that were built into this. So I don't think that this is going to be a thing where they finish this game and they're like, wow, I'm, exhausted on this type of world, just because it's something that was so fresh and so new in the same light of things. But then at the end of the day, even if they don't, they've obviously shown that they can create a great platformer / Metroidvania game. So I'd be down with whatever new story they want to tell either way.
I should also say, on top of them actually just continue to make Hollow Knight games, make a Quirrell plush. Fangamer now has the Grub. And there's like a talking Grub. They have the Knight, Hornet, and Grim from the Grim Troop. Where's fucking Quirrell, dude? Where the fuck?
The true struggle.
Like, we got the Papercraft Quirrells, which it's fucking dope. But I want a little Quirrell buddy. I want him with his weird ass fucking straight nail and his mask. That's all I want, dude. And then more Hollow Knight games. I'm not asking for much. Just the rest of your life being contributed to this one game. Wow. This one game series. That
seems fair.
So our last question is from Chris Penwell of Active Quest. Among other things like Let's Speak Geek, I would listen to it. They talk about Kingdom Hearts a lot. He's had Grayson Morales on and PlayStation. They're really interesting conversations. And it doesn't seem to be getting the amount of credit that it deserves. It's like an interview show. I would recommend checking it out. It's decent. It's pretty good. But he writes in and says, if you could choose an indie character for Smash, who would it be? So, Big Josh Boy, who would you pick?
So I kind of went back and forth around this one just because there's so many good ones. Honestly, I think the closest we'll get is probably Shantae in like the real light of things. I think that's actually a very possible situation. Although now with the struggle, not the struggle, but the issues around Mai and her sexy body in there, and the fact that Nintendo says...
I mean, Shantae's not that sexy, though.
I mean, but she's only wearing her little bikini top. She's got...
I don't know. Fucking good boys and girls, dude. They like it.
I don't know if good boys and girls are...
That was the funniest fucking quote.
Yeah, what a weird... That's got to be some strange translation screw up. I don't know.
I hope it wasn't. I hope he fucking said that shit, because it's funny as hell.
I don't know. Very strange. But my actual pick, I think, if I had to choose between them, I'd probably pick Cuphead. And the reason why I pick Cuphead is because I think one of the things Sakurai mentioned is the character, it doesn't matter about the popularity of them. It matters if they're fun. And I think Cuphead would deem himself as a unique character, very close to kind of like what Mega Man has, because he wouldn't be an in-your-face brawler in the same way where Mega Man has to shoot and use projectiles in a lot of cases. And I think that could be something to build a unique character in, that he's both using the boomerang attacks, the shooting just the regular shot, doing the charge shot. I'm sure they would find some way to make like other wacky attacks that you can do, just based on like even the like the bounce, like the purple slap bounce attack, I think would be pretty cool. Like if you had something where if you're in the air and you're next to someone, you could like slap off of them. Doing things like that would be really interesting, and I think it would just be kind of crazy to see just a giant character of this cup-headed freak in there. Would be such a weird addition to what Super Smash Bros. Already does, which is bring the impossible together of all these weird collection of characters. So I think it'd be cool to have that.
I mean, let alone how fucking cool the stage would be.
Yeah,
it would be awesome.
Yeah.
It would have that fucking live jazz band just ripping shit out.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack is probably one of my favorite things about Cuphead. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, Cuphead is the only soundtrack I own on vinyl. Well, that's how good it is. That's also because I got it when I worked at GameStop. It's like a tiny vinyl though. I don't know what to do with that. I'm not well versed in vinyl. But for me, I actually wrote an article about this a while ago for Handsome Phantom, but it's kind of a cop out let's be real. I was going to choose this no matter what. Quirrell. Fuck the Knight. Fuck Hornet. Make Quirrell a character in Smash.
No.
Do it.
No,
actually, I would choose the Knight. I think he would play so well. Of course, he would just be another swordsman. I think he would play a lot like... Yeah, because there's a million of them. He would play a lot like Shulk because you could switch out different charms and stuff like that. I think that would be so fucking cool, let alone, like, all of his abilities would work so well. Mm-hmm. So he has, like, the Mothwing Cloak would be really, really cool, both for, like, I believe the Mothwing Cloak actually allows him to dash, and then there are, like, other abilities that would allow him to have, like, a recovery and shoot projectiles. So I think that the Knight would actually be a really, really cool character to play in Smash, as well as, and this would break the game, so I know that they absolutely will never do it, but I think that Flint Hook would be such a fucking cool character in Smash.
I mean, Joker has that kind of like grappling hook thing as well, so I don't think it would break the game necessarily.
Yeah, and Link has his like hook shot, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I'm talking about his time belt, because he can slow down time. So I could see that being a big issue.
I mean, it would probably be something like Bayonetta has something kind of like that, but then again, that's her smash attack where she'll put like a slowdown on time and be able to attack people and then use her ultimate.
Mean, you could do a similar thing for Flint Hook, though. You could make it his like ultimate, and his standard abilities would pretty much be like bombs, his like blaster, and then his recovery, and the majority of like I would say his like platforming would be done with his hook shot.
Right.
Because it's not, it's kind of different than Link's hook shot. Link's hook shot is more to like grab people and pull them toward him, where I feel as like Flint Hook would be more of like pulling himself away. It would be more about maneuverability than Link's, because Link's recovery is like sweeping his sword, which I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how that works, just considering momentum. But I guess, you know, it's a fucking video game. Who gives a shit? I'm talking about putting bugs in it. So
I mean, yeah.
Whatever.
Nothing makes sense in the world of Super Smash.
But I would check out my article because I included both of those characters in it. I also think I might have included the Drifter from Hyper Light Drifter.
I was actually surprised that wasn't your first one.
So I thought about it. I think I had almost written it in that article, and then I didn't. I think I just quickly like shouted out to it because the Drifter is a playable character in Brawl Out, which is also on the Nintendo Switch. I actually haven't. I haven't played it, but I want to play as the Drifter. But that's the end of this podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you liked it, make sure to follow us on Twitter at IndiePod. I'm trying to be more active on there. I'm liking stuff. I'm trying to tweet. I tweeted about fucking bees wearing hats. Bee Simulator seems like the game of the fucking year, dude. That's it right there. Bee Simulator. Check it out. It looks dope. Bees wear hats. They look real cute. You can follow me at Hyde Legion on Twitter. That's HYDELEGION. You can follow Josh at _Jorsh90. That one's pretty easy. I'm not going to spell that one out. Nope. Unless you need to know how to spell Jorsh, which is like Josh, but with an R.
It's true.
Yeah,
right in the middle.
It's not that hard. And please, if you guys like this podcast, make sure to leave us a review, whatever you can on your podcast service, especially iTunes. It'll help us with algorithms. It'll help us reach out to more people, and it'll help just get this podcast out there and spread the word, the gospel of indie games. This is what we're really trying to do here. We're trying to make a cult of indie games.
Wait a minute. I don't know about that.
Well, you know what? I'll take that back because we don't like the label cult. We're kind of like how multi-level marketing doesn't like to be called pyramid schemes. We're like that of a cult. Yeah. Okay. We're like a heretical religious organization, but for video games.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah, it sounds much better. It doesn't sound creepy at all. That's it for this episode of Indie Incursion and Indie Games Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.